Hi, this is Marianne Soares from Lake Forest, Illinois, and I play at Conway Farms Golf Course. This is Golf Smarter number 957.
I firmly believe in bifurcation. I think they are playing a different game than we play. That's very obvious on any given day, any given moment, any given tee shot, any given putt, any given chip. Those guys are elite and play the game in such a different way. Swing speed, length, ability, it's not even close, right? And even people who think they're close are not close. So I do not believe that in the midst of golf's greatest growth phase for men, women, and children and every other person on the planet, to throw in the concept of a rollback for amateurs, for people who pay to play the game. Do whatever you want to the people who get paid to play the game, but for the people who are actually coming to the game to pay money to rock up and utilize a facility for 18 holes, the idea of throwing in the concept of a rollback to pieces of the equipment, especially the golf ball, to me just doesn't make sense.
The power and future of storytelling in golf media with writer and producer Matt Ginella.
This is Golf Smarter, sharing stories, tips, and insights from great golf minds to help you lower your score and raise your golf IQ. Here's your host, Fred Green.
Welcome back to the Golf Smarter podcast, Matt.
Thanks for having me, Fred. Always a pleasure. I look forward to catching up.
Thank you for agreeing to do this. I've been, ever since our last conversation, I'm like, how do I get Matt on again? And I've got some ideas, and we'll talk about that in the future. But for today, let's talk about what's going on in the golf world. I just did a road trip up to Eugene, Oregon, to go visit Sam Hahn at Lab Golf, and it was way beyond my expectations. Sam and I have a very kindred spirit. There's something about Sam and I together that is really awesome. I really like this guy, this kid, and got the full tour. Got a tutorial from Sam on how to use my new DF3 broomstick. I'm very excited about it. And those are going to be videos that we're going to do. They'll be ready for next week's episode. And there'll be videos, separate videos, one on the tutorial and one on the whole tour as well. Cool. That we got of the factory.
You know what I think of Sam. I think he's a fantastic character, and I've enjoyed getting to know him, and obviously enjoyed getting to know his story as it relates to Lab Golf and Bill Pressey and all the different tentacles that I sort of explored in reporting out that podcast series, and then got a chance to actually go by and meet him in his work environment at that golf course in Eugene that they call home. And they were cranking. I mean, they were breaking their new daily records, monthly record, weekly records. This goes back in May. They were just shattering. Every day was a new day of, unmeasured success.
Yeah.
So happy for them that everybody I met just couldn't be more passionate about what they do and how they do it. And they were just, seemed to be enjoying the fruits of their labor.
Well, we did a road trip. I went with a buddy of mine who he works for a consulting firm, a large consulting firm. And he was blown away by the culture up there, about how everybody is so tight and so wonderful and loves what they do so much and are so behind the mission that Sam is leading. He is really quite the character. I think he's, well, I can go on and on about him. And we got to play 18 holes with him as well, along with Liam Bedford. And those two can play golf.
No, it's Sam. I played with Sam here in San Diego. Liam was in the group, I think, ahead of us. And Sam is real deal. Yep. I mean, I think he's a scratch, and kind of plays to it is what I kind of recall. And I know Liam is legit, a former baseball player.
Right. And Phillies organization, but an Australian.
Legit athlete. And
Do you realize
so,
that he's 31 and he didn't start playing golf until he was 25?
yeah, I know. He was part of
and
the podcast
he was
series.
scratch in 6
Yeah.
months.
Yeah, no, athletes are athletes.
Yeah.
Some things you just can't coach or teach. And he's definitely falls into that category of just pure athlete,
Yep.
hand-eye coordination, all that stuff.
Well, on the drive up north, it's about 500 miles from where I live. We listened to the entire series again. It's the second time for me. I was like, okay, now it's research. Now I've got to study this thing. And there was one thing that Sam said in there that I had to get right. And I didn't remember which episode it was. And it was early on in episode 1. But when he said, yeah, people think of me a weird hippie stoner. I'm like, that's what it was about him that I felt like, it's like, oh, we're the same guy. We came from the music business and we're, out of San Francisco and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it was right. As soon as we saw each other, it was like, oh yeah.
No,
we loved listening to it again. It was worth a second listen. Congratulations. It's such a phenomenal series.
I thank you. I didn't know what I was getting myself into when I started. I honestly didn't. It's actually been, I don't even know really where to go from here in terms of where, I'm sitting on several stories that I've reported. It's going to take some time to put them all together. I'm in transition mode myself in terms of what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. And so I'm kind of, I'm dug in on a couple clients and people that I'm working with in order to make sure that I'm serving them, and then also kind of trying to figure out where we go next. We're also moving, literally physically moving. I've got some family stuff I'm dealing with. So a lot of things going on. I think as far as the lab series goes, I continue to get comments, DMs, messages. I had a lab. I didn't know how to use it. I listened. Now I know how to use it. I understand the technology better. I bought a lab. I get a lot of really very thoughtful, positive, encouraging feedback from people who not only like their putter, I think they like the story behind the putter and how it became what it is and the brand it is. So,
and the way you tell
really
it,
good. As you know, as a storyteller, when you tell a story, when you share someone or another brand story and it moves people, that obviously moves you. I mean, that feels good. I don't know where we are in the media industry now, in golf media, and as it relates to storytelling, whether people actually still care. I don't know if they do or not, but that's why it's nice to hear certain people actually saying, oh, I really enjoyed that. I listened twice. I didn't expect to listen, and I started listening. I couldn't stop. That to me is that's good. That's good stuff.
Yeah. So do you think, I mean, the way we see it right now, but is Lab Golf the hottest putter company in the world right now? I mean, they seem to be showing up in a lot of places.
Yeah, I don't know anything about anything. I don't look at business analytics, and I don't know, but I will say that there can't be any other putter company that's had this kind of growth like this. No putter company's growing exponentially like Lab is right now. I mean, Scotty Cameron is an iconic putting company and brand, and I don't know the numbers that they do, and but I know that Lab has its own individual thing and company. I mean, how can you be hotter than Lab? I mean, it just seems to be firing on all cylinders. And it doesn't mean I didn't miss a 4.5 footer in this week's Herdsman at Goat Hill Park, in the third hole of the horse race that cost my partner and I, but it made a bunch of putts to get us there. You know what I mean? You still got to have to hit you got to hit your right line. You got to have the right speed. So it doesn't do everything for you, but it has made putting fun for me again. I use a DF3. If I had to do all over again, I would probably go with the broomstick, knowing what I know now and having heard everything I've heard and then experimented with both. I just can't A, can't go away from what I'm using, which is the shorter DF3, and because that's been really good to me. But B, it's just hard to stick a broomstick in your bag and travel with it and put it in your trunk. Like, it's just a really long thing.
Isn't it the same length as your driver?
I don't know.
I think it is. I mean, unless you have something longer than 44
I don't
inches.
know. I've never actually put it in my bag.
It's
So
this,
whatever it is, it's just a big giant thing, and I'm just not sure that I'm ready to actually putt with a broomstick yet. Again, I see the technology. I think the technology is best served as as pendulum as you can be, and I think broomstick is as pendulum as you can be. But I just can't get myself to do that yet.
well, that's really contrary to what you were saying on your series, because if it works, let it
No,
speak for
not what I
itself.
said. It's what Kelly Slater said. I didn't say that, but you know what I mean. And what Adam Scott said, and what Lucas Glover said. I mean, they're just better at this than me. But there might be a day where I'd go to it. But right now, again, I'm putting so well with the shorter DF3.
Yeah.
And like I said, if I were to start all over again and do the first version of Lab as my, it would be a broomstick. But now that I got this in my hand and I'm putting so well with it, I don't change stuff. Like, if it's working for me, I stay with it. And that's why it took me so long to even go to Lab. They had sent me my putter. I didn't start using it for a couple months because I had been putting so good with my previous putter. So yeah, I dance with the one that brung me, you know what I mean? And, but now it's the DF3 short one, and I'm loving it. And people are noticing at my club. They're like, okay, that's it. I'm getting a Lab. I see how it's changed the way you putt.
It's interesting because on the video, when Sam is giving me a tutorial on how to use the broomstick, I mentioned to him, and I really believe it's true for me, I was using the DF3, and it is a huge leap from the 2.1, the DF 2.1, the direct force. And, but what I noticed about my putting with a regular size putter is that my left hand is what gets me in trouble. I'm right-handed, but it's my left hand. If I push it or I pull it, it's because of what's going on with my left hand. And so by using a broomstick, getting my left hand out of the equation and just using that classic perfect pendulum with the right arm, I'm like, my line, it's all about speed at that point. The line is exactly where I want it to go.
Well, I think, again, the whole gist of and the essence of why it's working and catching on is you're eliminating that whole concept of managing torque.
Right.
What is either the toe balance or the face balance, the toe hanger, the face balance putter. So if you're just taking that out of the equation, now you're just focused. Knowing that face is going to be coming square to that ball, and it's going to be starting on line or something very close to it. Now you're just worried about speed and line.
Right.
Eliminating that factor certainly makes sense to me. And if you see what happens on the revealer of what happens when certain putters are whipping around and going in, and that one is just staying steady. And then you go down the Brett Rumford hole of let go of control to gain control, and kind of that epiphany moment that he had, or that a lot of people have, in which as light as I try to hold that putter literally as light as possible. I try to swing it as smooth and as steady as possible, and let the technology actually do what it's supposed to do, what it was designed to do, what I think a lot of marketing had told you other putters in theory were going to do, but Bill Pressey actually figured out how to do it. So you get out of the way, and I got hot with it early. Then I went through a cold phase. Then I realized I needed to move closer to the putter. People were noticing that I was too far. My eyes were were back away from the ball. So I got a little more close again, getting more into that upright position, more into like almost a pendulum position, and then just letting that sway. And now I'm hot again. And now I
Oh, great.
feel in my mind, I feel like I can make every putt I look at.
The green is, a meeting place of hope.
And that's what I think putters and putter companies sell, right? I mean, they're selling you on the hope that you can, get good at putting and make the ones that matter.
Right.
And I think Lab's done a very effective job of doing all of that.
Well, in your 9-part series, you learn so much, and you get to the point of, like you just mentioned, you got to let go of control to gain control. But if you just say that to someone, it's not as effective as when you hear the whole story and get to that point. But it really is true about let go of control of your putter, untorque yourself, is what they say at Lab, right? But let go of it to gain control, to then become a better putter.
Get out of the way, get
Yeah.
out of the way, and just let the putter do the work. So, I mean, and as it's mentioned in the series, not bad life advice either, right? Let go of control to gain control. And, so there's some, golf is life and life is golf, and all the parallels keep going on and on and on. And here's yet more to chew on.
I think it was my first episode with that we did in 2005 with Dr. Joe Parent, who says, I help people get out of their own way. And I think this putter does that a lot as well.
If you let it.
If you let it.
Yeah,
absolutely. Okay, enough about Lab for now. We may end up back there, but there's other things, like when you just mentioned about storytelling in golf and media, it made me think of Bryson DeChambeau and how effective he's become through his YouTube channel, and how he talked about, his YouTube channel helped him to realize that it's all entertainment and it's all storytelling, and that he's an entertainer. And I was kind of blown away after he won the major at the PGA Championship, and it just seemed like he was a different kid.
I want to make sure that I'm understanding the question in there just before I start answering, which is, in other words, is Bryson evolving in a way that makes him more likable? Is that kind of what I'm hearing?
For me, yes.
Yeah, for me as well. Let's see. I think there's a few things here. I think he has evolved as a human being.
Okay.
Which is, you'd like to think we all do. We all are. I know some of us don't, or some of us resist.
He's still a young person. He's still in my 20s, early 30s.
And I think the way, and I don't know anything about anything. He's quirky. Okay. So whatever that is, Tom Doak is quirky. Bryson DeChambeau is quirky. There's a lot of very, very successful people in this industry who are, what would be deemed quirky or odd or socially wonky, or, a lot of, but it doesn't make them bad people. It doesn't mean they're, it just means that they're kind of, they're unique. They're different. They look at life, through a different set of glasses. I don't know. Bryson is definitely different, and we've seen a lot of different sides of him over the years. Some of the sides made it really hard to like him. I mean, the tantrums and some of the meltdowns and some of the things that he says. But I give people passes on that, knowing that they're young or they're immature or they've been coddled or they're surrounded by yes men or they came up with a different guy. I don't know. There's a lot of things that go into whoever we are as individuals. I do think that as he's gotten older and found his, he seems to be a little more comfortable in his own skin. He seems to be a little less agitated in his, personal and professional life. I think Live was kind of the was a was it's been good for some people and not been good for some people. Who's benefited more from Live than Bryson DeChambeau, right? Like out from underneath this kind of structured PGA Tour that's very controlling and very like trying to manifest a lot of different little brand narratives the way they see it or want to see it, and controlling, and it's like this lily white PGA Tour that we're going to project and manage in a way. Well, Bryson got out. He, that wasn't good for him, for a guy who's so unique and kind of wanting to do his own thing and break it. So I think Live gave him that kind of freedom, content freedom, platform freedom, uh, the way he plays. No one's going to outwork Bryson DeChambeau. So it didn't matter that he was going to be playing 3 rounds or playing less golf or shotgun. Didn't like he's a hard worker. He's a golf fanatic. He's a junkie. He's going to work as hard as he needs to try to keep improving.
Yeah, mad scientist.
He's a mad scientist. Part of the quirk I was referring to. He's just really, that's his thing. So I think he's just a guy who, whereas Dustin Johnson probably needed the structure and needed the guardrails and needed the control,
You're saying of the PGA Tour?
Of the guys who left the tour to go to Live. I think some of these guys aren't succeeding. John Rahm probably needed to structure the legacy, the 4 rounds and the play. I don't think he's gotten better since he left. I don't think DJ has gotten better since he left. I think Brooks is still a mixed bag, and we'll see what happens. I know he kind of partly left because he had a bunch of injuries, and whether he's healthy or not, I don't really know. But Bryson is one of those guys who left and is actually, has been very successful in his departure from the institution of the PGA Tour. Right or wrong, good or bad, like it or don't like it. Those are all different conversations. I'm just saying he's one of the few who's really thrived in this kind of fences, gates open kind of mentality of Live Golf, and more power to him. And he won another U.S. Open, and he did it in a really stylish, convincing way, and he's played well in most of the majors, and he's succeeding, and he's now found this other platform and outlet for all of, again, more quirkiness. Politics aside, and whether we agree or don't agree, with all of that again, more different conversations. I just think it's nice to see. I think he's good for golf generally. I think it's nice to see him be happy and be successful. I don't begrudge people, success and happiness. So good for him.
So I'm going to throw this one out to you. I hope that you can step up. I have no doubt you'll step up to this challenge. I just got word that you were made the commissioner of the USGA, and you're in charge of the PGA Tour. What's your first move?
Well, in terms of, that's a lot. So I'm in charge of the USGA and the PGA Tour.
Well, let's talk about everyday golfer. Let's talk about what the restrictions that everyday golfers have to do, whether you believe in bifurcation or not. That there's a set of rules that should be for the tour and a set of rules for everybody else who plays. Let's just say in the USGA, you're now in charge, and you get to say, this rule, do we really need that? Larry David here. But, where would you go with that?
I would, I think they're generally kind of going, certainly were going in the right direction. I definitely like Mike Wan. I think he's a good leader, and I think he did really incredible things for the LPGA. Whether that is going to ultimately translate into being good for the USGA, I think to be determined. I think he's really into this marketing and these taglines and these catchphrases of unify and govern or whatever, all these different things. I firmly believe in bifurcation. I think they are playing a different game than we play. That's very obvious on any given day, any given moment, any given tee shot, any given putt, any given chip. Those guys are elite and play the game in such a different way. Swing speed, length, ability, it's not even close, right? And even people who think they're close are not close. I do not believe that it's necessary to in the midst of golf's greatest growth phase for men, women, and children, and every other person on the planet, to throw in the concept of a rollback for amateurs, for people who pay to play the game. Do whatever you want to the people who get paid to play the game, but for the people who are actually coming to the game to pay money to rock up and utilize a facility for 18 holes, the idea of throwing in the concept of a rollback to pieces of the equipment, especially the golf ball, individually, and singling out the golf ball is to me doesn't make sense. It's unnecessary bucket of water on what is this beautiful, warm, life-giving flame that is the growth that's happening in the game. So that seemed odd and unnecessary to me. I do think that the longest hitters in the game, if you want to do a tournament ball, or if you want to shrink the driver size, or if you want to lengthen fairways, if you want to, limit the loft on what would be a driver, you could do any number of things. I really, honestly, could care less. When I go play softball, I use a metal bat. When they go play professional baseball, they use a wooden bat. I know it's not exactly the same, but my point is that I know that I'm not playing the same game that they play, and they know they're not playing the same game that I play. I know that they're getting paid to play. We're going out and trying to utilize our most people only play 6 to 10 rounds a year, Fred. Like, wow. 6 to 10 rounds a year. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, if you think about a golf season in the Midwest of being 5 months, and you play twice a month, you're playing 10 times. That's why we don't really need to get, like, it doesn't matter how far they hit. Like, if that person that plays 10 times a month is hitting it over a bunker they normally shouldn't be hitting it over, or cutting it a corner or whatever, or it's going to, it doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to me. So I say, let a real good thing alone. And if I was in charge of the USGA, I would be working with the other governing bodies of golf to create a set of standards or equipment or rules that made sense to the elites, so that we can, still utilize some of the best venues in golf for, some of the best tournaments in golf. And if guys are hitting at 340 to 360 to 370, or if they're carrying at 330 and it's rolling another 50 yards, I get the optics are that, that some of these cherished venues are becoming irrelevant or obsolete. And if you do want to do that, if you want to keep those in and keep them relevant, then roll some stuff back, but don't mess with us. Don't mess with the paying consumer, because it doesn't make any sense to me. Because the reality is, we, the people who pay to play, actually don't hit it too far. And if I got a group of 28 guys who go to Bandon Dunes every year and we play 6,200 yards, and we get a little wind and a little conditions, trust me, there's very few of us that are playing to our handicap or better. It just from 6,200 yards. So the point is, it's just not going too far. You know what I mean? You throw in a few little elements, you throw in that type of style of golf. It's just start polling caddies at some of these best courses in America and ask them if the ball's going too far. For the bags that they carry, trust me, 94% of the caddies polled would tell you they wish the ball went further.
Yeah.
And there's a natural rollback that happens by virtue of age and physical restrictions that's already happening to us, whether we like it or not. It's called getting older and not being able to rotate as much. And, a lot of the 20-somethings or 30-something, younger 30-somethings, they're going, we need to roll it back. Okay, just give it 10 years and tell me if you think it still should be rolled back.
Right. Come back to me in a decade when you get one or two gray hairs in your head. Then let's talk about it.
If the ball is actually going too far for you, congratulations. Enjoy it while it lasts, because a year or 2 or 5 years from now, it's not going to be the case.
Yep. I don't know what made me think about this past weekend watching the Open Championship, but you talked about using a metal bat for, when you play softball. But I guess this is really obvious, but it occurred to me finally occurred to me that the people who go to see professional sports, now we're talking about football, baseball, basketball, hockey, right? Not golf. How many of those people you think play the sport? But when you watch a major or any golf tournament on television, 99% of the people who are attending that event, they're golfers.
To some degree, whatever that is, again, whether that's, a couple rounds or they, whatever that is. And the good news is
they participate in the sport, as opposed to being just a voyeur.
And the good news is there's so many different entry points of what is the sport now. Again,
right.
Going back to the basketball analogy, and that if you went out and played horse, you played basketball that day. If you played 7-up, or if you played 2-on-2, or you played 1-on-1, you played basketball that day. You didn't play 5-on-5 full court, basketball in order to play basketball. And I think now we have all these different variations of what is golf, from Top Golf to putting courses to simulator experiences now that are becoming super social. And if you go to Korea, there's a simulator on every corner, like there is a Starbucks in New York. It's like that's the way people consume the game, is simulator experiences or driving range experiences. And so I love that this game, that especially in this country, has evolved fairly quickly, considering 25 years ago it was doom and gloom. It takes too long, it's too expensive, it's too hard. And now apparently the issue is the ball goes too far. I'm on the board of Youth on Course. Kids can get cards and play for $5 or less at now almost 2,000 golf courses in America. It's now spread across the country.
Yeah.
Subsidized green fees for juniors. So the affordability, accessibility, I think has evolved. A lot of women and girls are getting into the game. That's amazing for the true health of the sport in general. Mm-hmm. The LPGA seems to be, in a really good place, thanks to a lot of very likable, watchable, enjoyable, leaders in that sport, and Nelly Korda being, the Scotty Scheffler of the LPGA. And I don't know, the game is in a great place. I would get rid of OB white stakes. I'd make everything red stakes. I mean, there's, just little fun tweaks, little things that just pass the sensibility test. I would continue to massage those and make them make sense to the, I think, I played Goat Hill Park. Everybody knows this. I'm wearing a Winter Park 9 hat because that's where, a big group of people helped transform that community asset that was underachieving into something that's now overachieving. Great. Goat Hill Park, there's no dress code. It's dogs, it's kids, music. It's fun. It's, it's a community. It feels like a family. I go there and I don't even play golf and have stop in to see my friends, or my son knows more people there than I do. I mean, there's a kids court, the game is in a really good place. So if I were a part of some of this golf leadership, I would be making sure that I would be doing things that continued the path of growth, and not things that felt like they were having it go two steps back. Is that a crazy concept? I don't think so.
Recently, I've been coaching at First Tee. There's a new First Tee program here up in Marin and Sonoma County, and I've been working with 6 to 10-year-olds.
Well, that's got to be rewarding and amazing and fulfilling.
It's adorable. It's adorable. It's a lot easier than trying to teach my 3-year-old grandson to putt. Yeah. He keeps hitting himself in the head with his putter. But there's so many opportunities to be part of the community. What have you been up to recently?
Well, I mean, we what was the Fire Pit Collective the collective was what I pivoted out of. Again, I've told this story multiple times, but I leave Golf Channel 2020, start what was going to be my, a production company. It was called Dawn Patrol Productions. It was going to be travel, lifestyle, architecture, events. A month later, COVID hit. So then, travel, lifestyle, events, that didn't, that was going to be that was just bad, really bad timing. So then it was like, well, maybe we create, so talking to Alan Shipnuck was like, let's create a collective, a team of, not unlike what was happening at Barstool or No Laying Up, some of these other, boutique media outlets kind of joining forces and creating a team of storytellers. I think we were surrounding ourselves with very talented people. I think there was a ton of opportunity to try to, form one of those additional, storytelling outlets. And I think we told some really cool stories with people like Ryan French or Michael Bamberger or Colt Nedler or Laz Versailles or Jordan Perez, or, we had an incredible team of people that we were working with. But we just got too big too fast. I brought everybody in, salaries were too high. And I thought it was going to be a little easier to sell content, sell stories. There turns out that takes time.
You need audience to sell it.
Yeah, we weren't in our 20s. We, as Alan and I were saying, we are in our late 40s, feeling like we got to go. And we kind of got drunk on the success of the Phil book and the excerpt, and that kind of going globally viral. And it was like, oh, wow, here we go. We got all these analytics and all this feedback, but we didn't have a Phil book every week, right? I mean, you don't get that. So a lot of hard lessons learned, a lot of time, energy, expense put into that. And then it's not only to try to make it work at the start, but to try to make it work at the end. It's very hard to admit you're wrong, or it's very hard to admit a loss. It's very hard to actually, come to terms with, I had worked at Sports Illustrated, Golf Digest, Golf Channel. I had, I had only worked for a big company. I had, whatever is deemed success in sort of telling stories and sharing experiences, and thought I could roll right in. And I got got speed bumped by COVID. And then it turns out maybe I'm actually not that great at managing a large group of people while also trying to tell stories. I mean, I don't know. I've learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about the people in my life. I've learned a lot about my family, who have been incredible and super supportive and amazing. So, here we are now at what I'm, in theory, referring to as Fire Pit Productions. So the production, I'm sort of back to the beginning, that original concept of a production company, in which I tell stories about, places and people and things, architects, architecture, restoration, renovation, new developments, getting into the events business with what we're calling Bonfire, bonfire2man.com. We're going to have events at, Pasatiempo in December. We're going to Gamble Sands in October. We're documenting the David McClay's second build at Gamble Sands. We're documenting Jim Urbina's restoration and, of all Alistair McKenzie greens. So they did the front 9 the first year, and now they're doing the back 9. And we're called In the Dirt there. We did the Golden Gate Park restoration or renovation by Jay Blasi, which is a huge success and an amazing story.
I've never played there. I've known there was a little 9-holer at the park, and I played the Olympic Club recently, which was awesome. And I love Harding Park, but I've never played in Golden.
Harding is Golden Gate Park, and it's a 9-hole par 3 course. And again, WP9, Golden Gate Park. Goat Hill Park. This Golden Gate Park is another. It was an underutilized, underachieving community asset. Dan Burke and Jay Blasi and Josh Lewis and some of these guys have gone in there and absolutely made, with some private investment and funding, made this into what is going to be an absolute gem and impact the community in such a positive way, far beyond golf, right? Far beyond people having the occasional hole-in-one and having a great experience. It's just going to be an incredible community asset. It's already having, wild success.
Is it open now?
Yeah.
Or are they working on it?
No, it's open. No,
is it run by the city?
The city essentially is, it's still, but Dan Burke, who knows the game of golf, it is a first tee hub. It's a first tee facility. It's kind of an extension of Harding Park as a first tee hub. So they've got golf people in there that know what they're doing. So yes, from an agronomy standpoint, the city is still managing it. And I think there's some education that's been happening from the time of the restoration and until now. That's the same thing at Winter Park 9. John Ashworth has the lease and has control over Goat Hill Park, and that's a huge advantage for him because he is a golf guy. But he's still using the same superintendent that's been there for 30 plus years because that guy, knew what he was doing and just needed some resources to make it better. And now you got some of the best greens in Southern California at Goat Hill Park. So it's not this, I know what you mean. And it's cringy when you hear that, the city is managing anything as it relates to golf. And I wish that was happening less. And maybe more cities would actually realize that the real answer is turning it over to golf people and they can lease it or rent it. You know what I mean?
Right.
But
I played Lincoln Park in San Francisco a couple of weeks ago, and fun track, terrible condition.
It needs what Golden Gate Park got, and hopefully Jay Blasi gets that kind of chance. Sharp Park, Lincoln Park. I think there's other opportunities that could come. And again, if you keep using, if these turnarounds and investments into these community assets keep having success, why wouldn't? There's plenty of blueprints out there to show cities like this is how it works.
Right.
Get some golf people in there to do really good golf things and then sit back and reap the benefits of now what will be a renaissance of a community asset.
That would be amazing. I would absolutely love that. And I cannot wait to go to Golden Gate Park and play 9 holes.
Yeah.
That's going to be phenomenal.
Yeah. The next time you're anywhere near there, go, and you're going to want to go around
20 miles from my house.
Yeah, you're going to love it. You're going to love it.
Yeah. So
and Tiempo is amazing too, and what Jim Urbina has done, and Justin Mandan, and Earth Sculptures, and this team of people that have been tasked by the club to restore these McKenzie greens has been amazing to be able to sort of help them tell this story. And the next part of that series, because we did the front 9 and that, aired during the Western Intercollegiate in April. And there's a 5.5 minute version and a 3 minute version of what happened on the front 9. You can see the before and afters. But the part 2 is a deep dive into the 16th green, this sort of feigned multi-tiered green that it might be one of the most famous greens in American golf, and certainly as it relates to Mackenzie's portfolio of greens. And we are going to show you exactly what they're doing to every one of these greens in their effort to try to bring them back to what was intended by Marion Hollins and Alistair Mackenzie through the lens of the 16th green. So
Wow. That
we
sounds
have
fascinating.
an 8-week time lapse that's been running out there. We have
Wow.
all aspects of everything they've done and the pictures they used as reference points. And Brett Hochstein, who also worked at Golden Gate Park, is a young, great shaper that's helped sort of be part of this group that's putting this gem back together again. And it's really cool. It's a very successful story, and we're following Core and Crenshaw at Crazy Mountain Ranch as they build a very high-end private experience for Sam Byrne at the base of the Crazy Mountains outside of Bozeman, Montana, which is just spectacular. So we got David Kidd, Core Crenshaw, Jay Blasi, and Jim Urbina that were kind of really intimately involved in sort of documenting what they're doing, again, from new builds to restorations to renovations, and it's with 4 very talented architects who, have very distinctly different styles, and I love all of it.
Wow. I have to get back to Pasatiempo because the one time that I played there was right in the worst part of the drought that we were having, and they hadn't watered in a long time, and it was just really difficult to play there. Everything was rock hard. The greens were not in great shape. It was really kind of sad.
Well, that I did that story for Golf Channel in what was called Water Week. At that time, they were in the middle of a 5-year drought,
Right.
And they didn't have water. They didn't have access to water, reclaimed water. So it was all potable water, and those water costs were outrageous. They were drilling and trying to find well water. And meanwhile, next door at Scottsdale Valley has one of the biggest water treatment plants in the country. Don't quote me on that, but I know they have a massive water treatment facility. And they were making so much reclaimed water, a big chunk of it was going back out into the ocean. And meanwhile, Pasatiempo is their next door neighbor, and they're going, we are dying on the vine over here. And one of our community assets at this Alistair Mackenzie, Marion Hollins, gem of a sort of piece of what's happening in American golf. And your water's going out there, and the smart people and sensible people got in the right room. Scott Hoyt, the former GM of Pasatiempo, deserves a lot of credit. Justin Mandan, again, who's still currently the superintendent, deserves a lot of credit. Deals were made, and essentially they got some of that reclaimed water to Pasatiempo and made it all make sense. And they essentially have set that place back up for a sustainable next 100 years.
Great.
With diversifying the water portfolio. And that's when they started feeling like now we can start focusing on our green. Once they had the water issue resolved, which took, a lot of phone calls and meetings and conversations, and again, people making sensible decisions. Now that the membership and leadership of Pasatiempo got to focus on the greens, they knew they needed to do something to try to, enhance the sustainability of those greens. And they'd run out of pinnable locations. I mean, with top dressing and sand splash, almost 100 years of washouts and Mother Nature, you're looking at almost 12 to 18 inches of sort of time being put on top of these putting surfaces. And what you do is, if you're top dressing only the putting surfaces, nothing in the surrounds, well, what happens is you can take like what would be considered a punch bowl green, and it almost becomes a Donna Ross, bowl, upside down bowled green by virtue of just time, or sand splash around the bunkers that are coming. So learning all about all this, then also what was happening under the ground there from an agronomy standpoint was just archaic. And you had things like thatch and lack of drainage. So they needed to pull all that apart. And again, we've watched them do this. It's been a bit of an archaeological, essentially, dig back into time. and trying to understand what McKinsey and Holland's intent were. And then now with Urbina's, references of images and slight interpretation and understanding of what could have been or should have been. And again, given today's modern day green speeds, the 18th green, for example, you went from one, maybe two and a half pinnable locations. If the greens are running at 9, if they're running at 11, you really just had almost no pin locations. Now you have upwards of 8, the 5th green, 8th green, what's going to be the 16th green, 17, like it just, you've got these now, this shelving pattern within these greens. You got greens within the green that gives Justin Mannon and the club a lot more options and opportunities to create a variety of where you're playing and where you're attacking these greens. And it's amazing. It's really, really incredibly successful project that I think everyone's going to get. Whoever deserves credit's going to get it. Great.
All right, last question. We'll wrap this up. I'm just, what are you putting out these days? Do you have any new content that we can hear? Is Fire Pit podcast happening or?
Yeah, I'm going to get back to it again where
Great.
My wife is the most recent addition to Real Housewives of Orange County. So that was 6 months of shooting.
Really?
For her and us as a family.
Oh my gosh.
I needed to kind of work on sort of pulling apart Fire Pit Collective while also trying to give her the driver's seat of whatever it is that is this family business. We have a company called T-Shots we're working on, which is flavored shots and golf ball dispensers in a sleeve of 4. So we have
awesome.
That you'll be seeing more of. I will get back to storytelling. Again, we are a production company. I have clients that I'm working with and trying to tell their stories.
Great.
I will ultimately get back to my personal storytelling, in which I do more podcasting. Like I said, I'm sitting on at least 5 or 6 reported out timeless podcasts, including Nancy Lopez and Jack Nicklaus's 1,300-pound Marlin, and some of these things that I've got a variety of voices talking about. But for now, I'm focused on my family. And again, we have my father's not doing well. My wife's on the Orange County Housewives. That's coming with a lot of, responsibilities and pressures and time commitments, T-Shots. And then, other than that, we don't have much going on. So
ain't nothing happening. Matt, thanks so much, man. It was so great to talk to you. I know all I have to do is write down 1 or 2 things and it's going to be an easy conversation.
Yeah, well, let's play. We got a bonfire at Pasatiempo December 19th, where everybody's welcome to come join us. We're going to have an outing there. Jim Urbina will be there. We'll have lunches and dinners and a round of golf. Maybe we tee it at Golden Gate Park when I'm in town. We'll find a way to play some golf and use our lab putt. What happens when 2 people use lab putters and they're really good at it? It's going to come down to the final putt. I mean, obviously,
I hope so. It's the meeting place of hope.
Never lose hope.
Great talking to you, Matt. Thanks.
Thanks as always, Fred. Take care.
Well, now that we talked a little more about lab golf with another fan of the company, next week we'll get to go inside the walls of the Lab Golf Factory and get a tour from CEO Sam Hahn. In addition, Sam will provide me with a tutorial on how to best utilize my new DF3 broomstick putter. But it's not just the podcast next week. The tour and the tutorial, which will be one podcast episode, will also be available as 2 separate videos on our YouTube channel at Golf Smarter. I want to thank this week's Golf Smarter ambassador, Marianne Zurich from Lake Forest, Illinois. Now, Marianne has received the free link to Tony Manzoni's video of the Lost Fundamental for opening today's episode. It's free to become a Golf Smarter ambassador, and the only barrier to entry is not asking to play through. When you do ask to play, you'll get a choice of a free gift. All you need to do to become one of our featured Golf Smarter ambassadors is introduce a future episode. Just write to golfsmarterpodcast@gmail.com and I'll get back to you with some simple instructions on what to say and what to do. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions for upcoming episodes, please write to golfsmarterpodcast@gmail.com or click on the Hey Fred button when you visit golfsmarter.com.